Hey, welcome to today's lesson. Today's lesson is the last lesson in Unit 2. It comes from 3.6 out of our book, and it's on adding and subtracting decimals, which should be a review for most of you. So I'm also going to add some quick tips to remember that are going to help you to succeed on the unit test, which will be coming up shortly. So let's go ahead and get started. The first lesson we had was on place value. Remember, when writing a place value out in words, we only use the word "and" wherever we put the decimal point. There only gets to be one in a number written out. You have to remember it separates the whole number part from the decimal number part. So we only put it in there one time, and that'll be a reminder for us for where the decimal point goes. And then write the decimal part how you would say it aloud. Remember, we split it at the decimal. So right here we would split it right here at the decimal. And how do we say this half? We don't say 112. We would say 112. So that's what I'm going to write out. 112. And then I have my decimal point, which is where I put my "and" in there. And then I'm going to look at how would I say this half, 0307. I would just say 307. So I'm going to write 307, T-H-R-E-E, 307. And then I need to figure out what place value is. That's what the last part that I put on there. So I count it out and I go tenths, hundredths, thousandths, 10 thousandths. So that's my tag that I'm going to put on here is 10 thousandths. And don't forget that we need, when we're talking about decimals, oops, I think I forgot a D in there. We need to make sure we have this THS on there so we know that it's a decimal and not a whole number. So split it with where the decimal is. How would you say this out loud? How would you say that out loud? And then finally, what is this last place value that we use? Perfect. So now I want you to write this number out in words, and we'll go ahead and look at that in class tomorrow. So if you want to pause it and write this out, that would be great. All right, so then when we go the opposite way, when we have it in words and we need to put it into numbers, again, the first thing I'm going to look for is this beautiful word right here. And is, remember, what separates our whole numbers from our decimal parts. So this is where my decimal is going to go. Remember, if there is no "and", that means it's just a decimal part. It's going to be 0 point something. But here we do have an and before our "and" we have the number 12. So I'm going to put a 1, 2 before that. I've got my decimal point. And here I have 92 thousandths. Remember, here I need to make sure that my number ends in this place value spot. So I'm going to count out tenths, hundredths, thousandths, and that's where I'm going to make my 92 end. I got a 9 and a 2. I have not used this place value, but I do need to fill it in with a 0 so that I get to the thousandths place. So 12.092 is how that one would be. All right, now we're talking about rounding. The first step that we need to do is to identify the place value that we are rounding to. And by that I mean I want you to underline that number. The number that's in the given place value, I want to see it underlined on your paper. Then we need to circle the number to the right of your underlined number. This is the number that tells us what to do with our underlined number. If that number that you circled is 5 or greater, meaning 5, 6, 7, 8, or 9, then the number that we underlined, we're going to increase it by 1. If the number that we circled is 4 or less, meaning a 4, a 3, 2, 1, or 0, then the number that we underlined stays the same. We don't move it down, we leave it exactly how it is. And then step 4, we need to rewrite that rounded number, stopping at the place value that we underlined. Everything behind that just kind of drops off. So let's go ahead and practice this once. We need to round to the hundredths place. So the first thing I need to do is identify where is the hundredths place. I have tenths, I have hundredths. Here we go. The 7 is what I'm going to underline. That's step 1. Step 2 says circle the number behind it. So this circled number is what's going to tell me what to do with the 7. Anybody remember what a 3 does? If you said that this 7 is going to stay the same, then you're right. A 4, 3, 2, 1, or 0 means the underlying number stays the same. So now I'm just going to rewrite it, but I'm going to stop at that underlined part. So I have 132 and 67 hundredths, 132.67. Now you go ahead and try this next one. So pause it and go ahead and try it on your own. All right, we're rounding to the thousandths place. So you should have, oh, it's a 7 again that we're underlining here. We're going to underline that 7. We're going to circle the 6 right behind it. And this 6 is going to tell our 7 to jump up to an 8. So we have 23.948 as our final number. Good job. Now, adding and subtracting decimals. This is what's technically our lesson is about, but it should be review for you. Here's just a couple of steps that you need to remember when we're dealing with decimals. The first thing you want to do is rewrite the numbers lining up the decimal points. So we want to write them vertically, and we want to line up the decimal points. So for example, if I have 3.45, 6.1, and 5.187, I'm going to write them like this. I have 3.45. My next one was 6.1, and then I had 5.187. And notice that I'm trying to be relatively neat and keeping them in nice orderly positions. But ultimately what I was doing was lining up these decimal points. Step 2 says I need to add any necessary zeros to bring each number to the same place value. So here I have 2 numbers to the right of my decimal, then I have 1, and then I have 3. So I'm going to go ahead and fill in zeros here. I want to make sure that each one of my numbers has 3 digits to the right of my decimal. So now I have 3.450, 6.100, and 5.187. Remember, we can add zeros to the end, and it doesn't change what our value is. Now I'm just going to add or subtract if I was doing a subtraction problem, just like normal. I start at the right and I add them in a column. 0 plus 0 plus 7 is 7. 5 plus 0 is 5, plus 8 is 13, so I put my 3 down, and I have to carry that 1 over here. Now 1 plus 4 is 5, plus 1 more is 6, plus 1 more is 7, so my number here is going to be 7. 3 plus 6 is 9, plus 5 is 14, so I'm going to write down my 14. I carry my decimal point absolutely straight down, and there's my answer, 14.737. Now let's try it with some subtraction. We follow the same rules. What's the first step? Write them up with our decimal points in line, which we already have. Second step is to add any necessary zeros. I have 2 numbers here and 3 here, so I need to add a 0 here. And now I'm going to go ahead and subtract like normal. 0 minus 2. Remember, with subtraction, we always do the top minus the bottom. I can't just pick the bigger one and subtract. I can't do 2 minus 0. It won't give me the right answer. I have to go top minus the bottom. So I can't do 0 minus 2, but I can borrow 1 from here. So if I take 1 away from the 5, I can add it over here and have 10. So now 10 minus 2, I can do that. 10 minus 2 is 8. Now over here 4, because I borrowed 1. 4 minus 1 is 3. 3 minus 0 is 3. I'm going to carry my decimal point straight down. Again, I can't do 4 minus 6, but I can borrow from this column, which would make it 14. And now I've got nothing left over here. 14 minus 6 gives me 8. So my answer is 8.338 for my final answer. So that is all she wrote for today's lesson. Tomorrow, or I guess hopefully if you're watching this on the weekend, it'll be on Monday, we are going to be working on our adding and subtracting decimals and then reviewing and getting ready for our test. Good luck and have a great night.